I'm a 15-year-old girl who lives in New Zealand, but when this took place, I was around 12 years old. In 2016, a couple days before Christmas, the worst thing happened to us. We unfortunately found out that my aunt died, which was on my dad's side, and they were both very close to each other. She was a jockey, and unfortunately, it didn't end very well. Her favorite thing was the smell of lilies, which are flowers. This will be useful for later on. About 2 years after her death, we visited her again for Christmas, and we'd been there to see her many times, but this time, it felt different in a way. The air was heavy, and I got this feeling of dread. It was so overwhelming that I had to stay in the car for a bit. Once I thought the bad feeling had calmed down, I decided to hop out and look around the cemetery. As I was doing it, I smelt the most familiar smell, the smell of lilies. At first, it was kind of comforting in a way, but then I felt like I was being watched, but I couldn't tell whatever it was that was watching me. It didn't want me there, so I needed to leave, and I listened to my gut feeling. Not shortly after, once all of us were in the car driving back, we saw that there was something in the middle of the road, so we stopped. But the longer we stared at it, the more we realized it was my aunt. She looked worried, and about 2 seconds later, a car came flying by in full speed, and then she disappeared. It scared me so much that I couldn't sleep for the next few nights. But the longer I thought about it, the more I realized that she saved us that day, and that she was really looking out for us. I know you might not believe me, and I wouldn't either, but it's 110% real, and it's still vividly stuck in my head. My sister is 2 years older than me. I was approximately 15 when this occurred, so she was probably 17 at the time. It was Christmas Eve, either 2004 or 2005, I think, and we were stuck at my grandmother's house in Michigan. My grandmother was at her home in Florida, but my family stayed at her Michigan house to be near the other family in that area. It was painfully boring that night, and my parents had gone out to dinner with the other adults. That meant it was just me, my sister, and our little brother, who was approximately 5 years old, at the house. I remember putting my brother to bed and going to sit on the couch so I could plug my new laptop in. Suddenly, my sister in the living room started yelling to get the hell out of her spot. She wanted to plug her laptop in. I don't remember exactly what I said to her, but I know I wouldn't have given it up without a fight. Nothing was physical, but the yelling woke my brother. I put him back to bed and returned to the living room/kitchen area. At that point, my sister was in the kitchen. She looked at me, apologized, and offered me the internet plug. I was so surprised because she never apologizes. After all that, I decided to go to bed and spend the rest of my night texting my boyfriend, so I cautiously accepted her apology, but declined the plug. She then proceeded to try and convince me to sit there. When I reiterated I was going to bed, it was like a light switch went off. She didn't say anything, but I could see it in her eyes. Those eyes changed, and suddenly were focused at the butcher block of knives. The next thing I know, she was reaching for them, and they were between us. I grabbed the Windex bottle that happened to be next to me at the time, and sprayed her face before turning and running down the hallway. As I ran, I could hear her yelling at me and coming down the hallway too. I went into the first room I came across, which was a bathroom, and locked the door. Within seconds, she started banging on the door, and I called my parents to tell them my sister was trying to get me. For 10 minutes, she tried to break down that door, but then suddenly, there was silence. What broke the silence was her voice apologizing again. This time, I knew better and stayed away. When my parents arrived, there was a butcher knife under a couch pillow directly in front of the bathroom in which I was hiding. It was then that I realized the internet spot she wanted to give me faced away from the kitchen. I have no doubt that night she planned on doing something menacing. I may not be any kind of expert, but I believe there's more to this world than mere humans can hope to understand. I've always had a very fine-tuned sense for what I believe to be unexplainable things. Moments where I feel like something I can't quite explain with any rationality happens. Later on in life, I would be told that what I have can most easily be explained as some weak physic or supernatural energy by a Wiccan witch. Nothing too impressive, but just enough to let me feel those entities even when I can't see them. Something like the ghost in my grandparents' guest room, or the malicious entity haunting the stairs and basement garage. The same uncanny sixth sense that my mom observed when my younger brother was born, stronger than her own maternal sense. This was to the point where I understood when my brother needed something before he even knew and could make a sound. I would even wake him up in the middle of the night without fail. But I think there may be more to it, as this incident leads me to believe. My family had recently moved to British Columbia, Canada that winter. I was 10 at the time, and while by no means were we in the boonies, we moved into an older trailer near a well-known hiking trail and a small Christmas tree farm. Immediately, there was something off about the area. Something that my parents waved off as new home anxiety. I knew that I wasn't just not used to the place, but that something weird was going on here. I did my best to put it off my mind, but within 2 weeks of the move, I began to notice strange happenings. Firstly, the unsettling aura I just couldn't shake. Sleepless nights where I felt like I was being watched by something at my window. Strange shadows, there 1 second, gone the next. Voices, soft, whispering my name, and only when I was alone and in my room, near the window. However, whenever these incidents happened, soon after I would feel something brushing up against my shins and ankles. These instances would be near constant until I struck out on my own 8 years later. My parents insisted we'd take a family walk on the mountain trail, and though I didn't want to because I by no means am an outdoors man, something in me screamed not to go, that it was dangerous. But being barely 11, of course, my parents completely dismissed my concerns as being lazy, and we were off to the trail's main entrance. As soon as I stepped foot outside the car, the warning bells in my head were blaring louder. Something in me kept saying we had to leave, that something bad was going to happen there. The little voice in my head kept focusing on my diabetic mom, who at the time had a weight problem, dad with his disability that made him outright unable to run, that my bad lungs would make it impossible to run myself, and that the three of us were sitting ducks. I didn't know why I was so hyper-focused on running, on needing to get away. We were halfway through the walk when suddenly, I froze. The apprehension I'd felt about the whole event ramped up to 11. My parents thought I stopped because I was tired, and took the opportunity to take pictures of the lovely fall leaves. It was a gorgeous sight, but I knew there was something there, watching us, and it was not something we wanted to meet. I looked around, trying to find whatever was setting me off. All I saw was a fleeting shadow. I could feel the brushing, but the feeling of dread and fear only got stronger. The familiar touch unable to drive it away as it normally would. Whatever it was close. If it came at us, we wouldn't stand a chance, and I still didn't know what the hell it was. My parents still hadn't noticed something was wrong, and I felt my voice catch in my throat, not out of fear, but as if something wasn't letting me speak. I heard the leaves rustle. It was close, so close. I glanced where the noise was coming from, and saw a shadow for a split second before it vanished behind a tree. And as it vanished, something changed. It felt like a volcano had erupted in my chest. It felt explosive, angry, spewing burning clouds of toxic gas and ash. I was afraid, but I wasn't frozen anymore. I was angry, eyes locked on the area I'd seen the shadow at. I was no stranger to anger. I'm aggressive, and I always have been, but this rage was entirely new. The feeling against my leg stopped, but the fire was burning hotter, and this dangerous thing just hiding outside of my field of view. I felt it lock up in fear all on its own. I convinced my parents to pick up the pace, practically speed walking the rest of the loop, not daring to let the fire spark in my chest die. The strange presence lingered, much farther off, but still watching, almost curious now. We left the trail and never went back. Then a few weeks later, my mom found out she was having my brother.